Hey guys, this is WhytManga here with a new video, and in this video I'm going to be going through one of my old comics, but here I will be analyzing it and kind of going through things that I wouldn't do again. So basically it's just me learning from my old mistakes, but looking back, I don't think I was that bad. So even before I did these comics, I already had done some research. I was already, I guess, I think pretty decent. So it's not like these were terrible, but these definitely had its issues. The one before, most of you probably just know me for Apple Black and projects like Saturday AM and the titles in Saturday AM. So basically knowing me from this Saturday AM era is what I'm trying to say with Apple Black. But I did two comics before I did Apple Black, and Apple Black I always had it, and it was not how it looks today. It looked far worse, and I'll probably have some shots on the screen for you guys to see, some previews of how it used to look in say like 2009 or something like that. But as long as you persevere and you're trying to grow as an artist, you will be fine. And I think that over the years I've improved, but you can clearly see that from here I'll just show things that I wouldn't do again and things I don't do anymore, so that are apparent for those who actually follow my comic currently, Apple Black. So for those who don't know me, I'm the creator of Apple Black, a writer and illustrator. You can read the first 4 chapters free. I'll leave a link in the description, or you can purchase Apple Black Volume 1 with the first 9 chapters in the description as well. You can also check out all the other comics that are on Saturday AM. We have some really good titles with Bully Eater, Clock Striker, and Saigami, and so much more. I'll leave links in the description to everything you could possibly need, social media, where you guys can message me and things like that, Instagram, everything will be in the description below. So I did 2 comics. One of them was Candlejack, and I think I'll save that for a separate video because I don't want this video to be too long. And then the next comic I did was this, and again, coming from Candlejack, there were things that I learned from that project that carried on to this. Not that it carried on, but I corrected myself going into this project, and then I've been that way ever since. So the goal here is kind of to let you guys know that, and I'm still that way today, even with Apple Black. So Apple Black Volume 2 is damn near done. Each chapter I'm learning from the mistakes. So the goal here is to kind of show you guys that it's kind of a good practice for you to always yearn improvement, always want to improve, always look back at your work, try to see what's wrong, see what didn't work. It's not always going to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect before you start a project, but you do want to do some research and be at least comparable to the professionals that exist in the current landscapes of comics. At least have something comparable to their work to some degree, and not by just your eyes, but the eyes of others, especially if you want your work to be seen by others or purchased or things like that. Get feedback, take criticism, and be mindful of who you're getting criticism from. Make sure that the sources are credible, and learn from your mistakes. Be honest with yourself. And I have a video on how to improve, which I go in a little more detail with that, and I'll leave links for you guys to go check that out. This was a project that I only illustrated though. This was Samurai Top Hat. I was not the writer for this. So part of the learning process here was me trying to garner experience working with on a team, even though it was just a 2-man team in this case. And this is all we produced because, to be honest, at the end of the day, working with him was not pleasant. I kind of think he had issues. So another thing is, if you're going to work on a team, you got to do your research on who you're teaming up with. Establish what kind of collaboration it is, or if it is a collaboration at all, or if it is a commission. And if you're worth the money, then you should be paid. If it's a commission and not a collaboration of any sort, there's a difference. And I'm not saying you need to be paid for everything you do. I think that's a topic for another time. But in cases like this where you're drawing someone else's vision completely, you need to make sure you know what that is. If it is a collaboration where you guys are working together as a team, or you're working for that person, and if you're working for, then you should be compensated in some way. As for what the compensation is, that's up to you. But going into it, I was really new to all this kind of stuff, and if you see doing the book, I just printed it out however I felt, just to have a physical copy. And we sent it to a couple places. We didn't get any feedback. Yeah, we didn't get any responses, but it is what it is. I think it was still a good experience for me. So the presentation was also not the best, but it's not bad. But some of the things I learned with this was trying to come up with a trade dress. Because when you look at, this is not like a volume, but when you look at volumes, and there's a way, there's like a graphic design sense of how things are presented. And I think that my approach, if I were to do this cover again, will be slightly different and more along the lines of what I actually ended up doing with the likes of, say, Apple Black. And here, I just wanted something simple, just a one shot, so I wasn't too focused on the presentation or any pages leading up to the actual comic pages. This was almost just a little sketch. The idea here was me having a light sketch, introducing the viewer into at least the grittiness of what this kind of word would look like. But there were certain issues with how I used to use Manga Studio at the time, and it always put out these paginations and the name of the comic and things like that now that I'm more familiar with the software, I would know how to avoid, because they ended up like obstructing some of the artwork when I printed it out. And I just used a local printer. It was not, this is nowhere near as well as how I produce my comics now. But some of the pages are pretty decent. Got some stuff here. I would have probably started this comic slightly differently. Part of the issues was that I was kind of going off a script, and sometimes the script would call for a certain amount of panels and a certain amount of action within one panel. I'm not going to go into much detail with that, but long story short, if I were the writer of it and if I had full 100% control, a lot of things would be different. So here in this case, I probably would have had an establishing shot before I jump into like the first panel showing characters already, because it's one thing if it's a series that viewers are already familiar with, but something like this that's a one shot, it's usually safer to kind of have an establishing shot. And when an establishing shot is just a shot showing the backgrounds, showing where the characters are, where the scene takes place. And there's a video, I have a video where I talk about some visual story telling techniques and tips and things like that, which I'll link to, and one of them is focused on establishing shots, so y'all can watch that. And you would kind of have that and have some kind of transition into this scene where you have the characters inside, and now we see our main character from behind, kind of building some mystery. So there were some things that I liked how I did. You see I have these characters toned, kind of looking at him in a suspicious way, but the way I tone now is slightly different. I probably would have toned in the eyes, but I probably left them on because of how dark the tone I used turned out to be. But so far so good. We have some little dialogue here. Another thing I would do is I wouldn't have dialogue so close to the edge of the gutter, and that's what this is. It's basically a gutter where the two pages meet, and that's just to save the art, save the text. So you want to keep important artwork a little more centered. I wouldn't even have it too close to the edge at the top. I'll have it a little more centered, so I would probably pull this a little closer to the center of the panel. And it was something that I had to learn, and it took a while, because I did make some similar errors recently, not recently, but like some of the early pages of Apple Black Volume 1. But I've learned from it, moving on. And those are things that I avoid now, and glad to say that things like this are nowhere near, like, they're not really in Volume 1 at all, really, but they're there a little bit, to where I had to push some of the text itself away from the gutter, because sometimes some printers wouldn't even print it because there's text not where it's supposed to be. But there are zero issues like that in Volume 2, and it's barely in Volume 1, but I can remember like one or two instances where it is in Volume 1. But moving on, another thing that I'll fix is kind of like the progression of the panel of the text bubbles, how they're placed. You kind of want a smoother you kind of want the viewer's eyes to go around this page a little smoother. So we go from here to here. I mean, it's not that bad in this first page. You go from here to here, you go down, then you go up. You kind of want it to go a little smoother, right? Here is a little all over the place. And we have that same issue again where you have like a text bubble closer to the edge of the gutter. So when you're creating your pages, you need to keep these things in mind. Make sure your text is not too close to the edge of the page. Now I also did this thing, and I did it backwards, where the I kind of leave space at the edge of the papers on these sides, and it's probably warped. What I should have done was probably keep the space in the gutter area, so you wouldn't have to deal with this kind of stuff. So all this space here would go here instead, you know. And the only times that they would actually join is if it was a double spread. If it was a double spread page where the artwork goes from one page to the other. And the comic here is read left to right. The reading orientation of the book is left to right, just mainly because of where it's published. And I see a lot of people do their comics from right to left, and that's fine. You can do whatever you want to do with your comic, but I'm of the belief that it should be based off of where you're publishing the book. So if you're publishing it in a country or a place where majority of the places where the book is going to be available are reading left to right, then you probably want the book to read left to right. You can still have it read right to left. That's okay. In Japan, we have manga read right to left because, you know, in Japan, that's how stuff is read. It's as simple as that. Some of the artwork I like is pretty good. It's not that bad. I think there's maybe a little too much white space here. Some of the text bubbles or text balloons, whichever you want to call them, the line work for it is maybe not as smooth, but you know, I'm not too worried about that. Sometimes that's actually done on purpose. I got a little action here. One thing I would have done in this case is I would have had the panel stretch out completely to the edge of the paper, rather than just making it pop out just a little bit. It's when I do this kind of stuff, and even when it's done in mainstream shonen comics, if it's going to pop out, it pops out to the edge. The only times where it doesn't pop out completely is if we get back to the gutter. So it doesn't pop out into the gutter. Like I said, only when it's a double spread page and the artwork continues on to the other side. But if it doesn't, then you would have that gutter. And here's like an example where you see the panel, this panel, and this panel. This is from One Punch Man, Volume 1. And if you see, these panels extend to the edge, right? And they extend completely. The only places that they don't extend to are the middle of the page. You can see that there's a line where the panel actually ends, and that's because this is the gutter, right? And you see that they don't have any important text close to there, because then it'll be either difficult to read or difficult to see. So if you're going to extend, here you see they don't extend, right? And they have everything concise. It's in a little box. Have here, it's in a little box. But when they do extend, they extend to the fullest, either completely to the bottom, or completely to the sides, or completely to the top, right? Or both. You know, there are some times where they would only extend to one side, so maybe there would be a line ending the panel at the top, but usually anytime there is an extension, it goes to the end. So you wouldn't have things like this where this panel just extends a little bit and this one doesn't. And the reason why I extended this panel in the first place was, you know, just because of the action. It was kind of like a not that big a deal, but major action, but it's an action, and I just wanted it to pop out more than all the other panels where it's just regular dialogue with characters talking. And I made the panel bigger, but I didn't extend it to the fullest. Now, technically, this is not bad, right? This is just something I wouldn't do anymore, but it's not necessarily wrong, you know. It will still be printed, you know. Someone out there could take it as their own style, rather than doing it how, say, some mainstream comics do it. I'm just saying that now I'm more fond of doing it the mainstream way, because that's what I wanted to do in the first place anyways, but I just, was still in the learning process of things, and I did it this way. It's not bad. It still kind of does the job, because it shows some importance, where it's not, this panel is not in line with everything else. But how I would have done it is I would have stretched it out to the edge completely, but I'll still make sure I keep any important art centered in the page, like in this area, right, in the live area of the page. Some of the stuff I did here, I kind of like where the character kind of pops out from the panel. And these, as I went on with the pages, some of the artwork started to get better and better. Some things I'll do, some things that, like, some of the perspective here, it's not that great. The reading, the way your eyes go in this area, in this part of the page, it's not that great. But again, it's not that bad. It kind of takes you down, but then pulls you back up, so you come to read what's here. But I would have probably repositioned this whole panel to have most of the text at the top, so you just go and you read. But when you go, I pull some of the important art down and have more of the text at the top, since this is the next panel we read after this one. But it goes on. Again, I was consistent with the mistakes I made, but there are some places where I think the artwork's really good. I still like the artwork. The fingers here are pretty okay. I like the blood, a little gritty. I was going for this comic, I was going for a little bit of a seinen style, and for those who are unfamiliar with that, seinen style is just something a little more, let me just say, I was going for something a little more mature. So, say, inspired by comics like Berserk or a Vagabond, or something like that, where I tried my best to have as much detail as possible. So some of the artwork's it's not bad at all. And some of the angles that I chose to kind of tell the story, I thought were pretty decent. I was challenging myself to have challenging camera angles to say some important things, and sometimes I would make the mistake of maybe giving some dialogue maybe more importance than they actually needed. So, sometimes I didn't need a close-up, but I drew a close-up. But it's whatever. This is just me kind of being extra hard and picky when I did. Because overall, this isn't, I don't think this is that bad, but I think I've improved a great deal from this.